Hello, line 2. So if you're a 2-4, a 2-5, a 5-2, or a 6-2, this video is relevant to you. And this is the third video in a series of 3 about the profile 2. So if you haven't watched the other ones, this one's kind of like the culmination. The first one we talked about the gifts that the 2 has naturally. The second video we talked about alone time and being the hermit. And in this video we're talking about the dynamic of being called out for their gifts. So if we haven't met, I'm Karen McMullen, and on this channel I share human design as well as channeled messages to help you get really clear on who you are and what you're here for. So you can subscribe, and also in the description box below I am putting all the links to the amazing people who you will see interviewed in this video, and then a whole bunch of other goodies that I have up my sleeve, so you can check out the description box. It's full of good stuff. So the line 2 is kind of interesting because while they're busy doing their thing, having their hermit-like alone time and just exploring and discovering, creating, expressing, and being naturally gifted, they are putting a projection out into the world. It's like their aura is speaking and saying, hey, like, I'm really good at what I do and notice me. Even though the hermit does not want to be noticed, that's what their aura is saying, and they are receiving attention and they are being noticed for their natural gifts.
Was called out once in school around being a writer. And the teacher pulled me to the front of the class, and maybe it was grade 6. I was mortified and asked me to read out my story that I had written because it was so good, because I was a really, advanced writer and reader. And I was like totally mortified. I didn't want to be better than my peers in my grade 6 class. I forgot about that. Yeah. So there was that one thing that happened.
Because of this projection field coming out from them that is saying, I'm good at what I do, the 2 is going to be called out for their gifts. So this is like, people are going to come on, knock on their door and say, hey, like, I saw your garden in the backyard. It's incredible. I want you to do that for me. And they're like, oh, what? I just kind of putter around in there. And they're like, well, how do you do it? And the 2 has no idea how they do it.
That's so right. Like, people say to me, so what's your business plan? What's your marketing plan? I'm going, I'm just going to do it, and then I'll tell you what the plan was. Is that it? Mm-hmm. Like, I do it, and then if I have to document what I did, then I'll document what I did. But I'm not going to document it and then do it. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
When did you realize that you were unusually gifted or talented?
I think it happened when people would say to me, how did you do that? People would say, how did you do that? I go, I don't know, I just did it. Like, I think some of my competitors in the apparel industry would often say, they would say, the hell does she do that? I got a big kick out of that because I didn't know how I did it, so for sure they didn't know how they did it. And I don't want to sound like I'm falsely modest or anything like that, but I seriously, I remember there was a time when there was a fashion show, and we were doing a fashion show, and and the fashion show was like in 2 days, and everything had to be finished and accessorized and coordinated and assigned to a model and everything like that. And I had this idea for this coat that I really wanted to get into the show. And they're literally fitting the models. And I'm there molding the fabric with my hands and making a pattern. And within 2 hours, I had a finished garment. And I ran into where they were fitting the models, and I said, look at this. And everyone went, and they opened the show. It was the opening of the show called the envelope coat. It was simple, very, very simple, but it just had an architecture to it and a shape to it that was just, and it just came together like that. And and the people that were fitting the model said, "How did you do that?" There was no coat 2 hours ago, and now there's a coat that's opening the show. So, what was your question?
Yeah, I think a gift that I've really been tapping into over the years that I really didn't identify with is being a leader. You know, people were calling me a leader before I really felt into being a leader myself. So I think that really is something that I've kind of gravitated to really and sat with and worked with in the last few years, is that leadership role and being a leader. You know, other people were saying you're a leader before I believed I was the leader.
When did I realize I was unusually gifted or talented? This is a good one. So you know something, really early on, I noticed that. I remember a teacher in grade 8 pulling me to his office to talk to him after school, or to his desk, because he admitted he thought that I was plagiarizing when I was giving my writing assignments and my fiction writing assignments that year. His name was Mr. Reed, and he confessed to me that he had actually called my teachers from the prior grades, 2 grades before, actually, both men teachers, to verify that I actually could write like this. Like, oh my God. Yeah, that happened. I also recognized when I was in school, right? I was just winning all these awards all the time. So for my writing, or getting all these great A's for my writing, A grades or whatever. Is there another one like that? There is another one where I got called, well, I realized, oh, I know, like I was doing remote viewing. Okay, so back in 1997, I went to a class to learn remote viewing. It was like a 2-day class in the Chesapeake Bay with somebody who used to do the remote viewing protocols for the United States government. Now, I had never done remote viewing before, but I already was working as a professional clairvoyant. So I don't think it was a stretch really, but we were learning a particular protocol. And basically there might have been 10 students in this weekend class. And at the last day, he asked us to all intuit, remote view what was inside this envelope. And so then when we were done, we had to share in a circle with the group what we saw. And I heard a sound of roaring water. I saw the shape of a horseshoe, and I actually saw an eagle flying in the sky. And I said, it sounds like Niagara Falls. I said, I saw a horseshoe, I heard water. I'm going to guess it's Niagara Falls, like a picture of Niagara Falls in the envelope. And I didn't tell them I saw the eagle because I thought it was just an anomaly, because that was my spirit totem animal at the time. Anyway, it turned out that the envelope, he came to me in front of the group of 10 or 11 students, handed me the envelope and said, open it. And I opened it up, and it was the sound of it was a horseshoe falls in Niagara Falls with an eagle flying over it. So then I realized I'm unusually talented at remote viewing. This is my first class, you know, and then I got hired after that by him to do some remote viewing and be a part of a BBC documentary. It was really, really cool. So yeah, things like intuition and writing, I've always known pretty early on, because other people don't seem to be seeing the future accurately. Or they don't seem to be writing with as great ease as I did.
And it is quite mythical. I had a boyfriend that was a 6'2", and he was like an incredible photographer, a gifted musician, an incredible athlete, like a tremendous salesperson. He had, an amazing cook. He had so many natural gifts. Oh yeah, he was also like an incredible healer, an energy healer. And those were all unconscious for him, because the 6'2", the 2 comes in the physical form and the unconscious. So he really couldn't explain why he had this gift. He didn't need to study photography. He just picked it up, and it was like so easy for him. Same with the energy work. When I first met him, I just touched his hands and I said, wow, like you're an energy healer. I can feel it. And he went to my friend who's a Reiki practitioner, and she put her hands on him and she just said, wow, like you already have the Reiki seals in you. And she had to step back from him a few meters away to work on him, because his energy was so incredible. In a way, the 2 is like a projector, that they're kind of waiting for the right call to come for them to, have a true response to, according to their strategy and authority.
In terms of shyness, yes, I can sometimes be shy, purely because, and I think this has something to do with the fact that as a second line, especially an unconscious second line, I don't always see what other people see in me. And so when they tell me like, oh, you know, you're so talented and you're so amazing at doing this and that and that, it doesn't always kind of resonate for me because I don't see that as clearly as they do. And so in those moments, I can be a little bit bashful. In social situations, I can sometimes feel a little bit shy, especially if I'm on my own at a party or that kind of thing. But yeah, like it does kind of bounce between the shyness and the boldness, and ultimately I do feel the need for both.
I had a really interesting experience of being called out to share my gifts. I'm a 2/4 profile and I'm also a manifestor, but sometimes I joke that I'm like a fake manifestor because of the 2/4 profile, because that calling out aspect, you know, it's a very projected energy. So when I was initially launching my online course that teaches human design, I was pretty resistant. I'd had the manifestor urge for a while and was resistant to follow it, but when I finally did, I started getting so many messages from YouTube followers, from Instagram followers saying, oh my gosh, Katie, you make human design make so much sense to me, and when you teach it, I can really understand. And that to me was like, oh, this is like the universe calling me out, where it's like, you're good at this, you have a gift for this, keep it up, keep going. And so it was a really great little, push, reminder as I was following this urge that it's like, you're on the right path, you have a gift for this is a talent of yours, lean into it.
So I love how Katie said in her interview clip that even though she's a manifestor, because she's a 2, she almost functions more like a projector because she gets called out for her gifts, and that's how she knows that she's kind of like on the right path.
Yes, I really do feel that I have a desire to speak, and that's what I've made my business all about, is me speaking. But what I realized too is that I wasn't always that way, and I didn't really always tap into that. Because when I was in high school, I took like things like oral presentation, which I absolutely hated. And at that time, I told people I would never do public speaking. And now I've made a career out of it. So it's kind of like I did a 180. I think what made me really tap into it is the fact of really realizing that people wanted to hear what I had to say, because people were always asking, when are you going to speak? When are you going to write a book? When are you going to do this? And so then I really tapped into that, saying, oh, okay, somebody's trying to tell me that this is something that I should be doing.
So when you get called out, you can follow your own aura type's strategy, whether it's the generator and you're waiting to respond, or the projector waiting for the invitation, the manifestor informing once you've kind of decided that you want to do something, or the reflector waiting a lunar cycle. And then also your decision-making authority to kind of feel into and sense whether or not the call is right for you.
When somebody knows that I'm, say, psychic, or I have astrology tools, or I have certain skills, especially the intuitive thing, which really irritates me, they'll say, well, why don't you just do a little reading for so-and-so? Or like, Lori, why don't you just tune in, to what's happening with my friend Jill or whatever? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not my job when I'm not working. So just that, but that's normal for most professions, I think, where people are asking you to do your thing when you're not wanting to do your thing.
Like I said, I called out many of my 2 friends to come and do this interview series, and the majority of them declined the call. They did not want to do this. So I think that's kind of a good example. And it is suggested that you really stay true to your own instinct, because if you respond to a call and it wasn't actually right for you, it can be hard on the 2 not to fulfill on the call well. It's important to them that they fulfill and deliver the intended result, because if they don't, they can kind of feel wounded by that, and then it makes them even more reclusive and less likely to respond to future calls. And Steve Rhodes, who was also a student of Ra and kind of branched off into his own system called Bond 2, he talks about the 2 as a discoverer, saying that like the line 1 was concerned about foundation and safety and security, and then the line 2 isn't really as worried about safety and security. They want something new, something better. They're like, okay, we've got the safety under control, we've got the foundation, now what? Like, what else is there? What could be better? And so they're really kind of raising the bar and raising the standard. And they're not going to just settle for the first thing that works. They're looking for something that's going to be really awesome. He says like part of the reason why they are seen as so talented and gifted is because they're really willing to go the extra mile to reach that next level, the next standard, beyond what works and beyond what we know. I think that you can see in this interview series that the people who are like most at home in their gifts, that it just really shines, and it doesn't come across as like egoic or anything. It's just really beautiful to see the 2 thriving in their gifts, and I really have a deep appreciation for the 2, like the 2s that I know in my life. They're so incredible, and it's really kind of a marvel to watch them do their thing. So I'm very grateful to the people that contributed to these interviews. I'd love to hear your comments below of you know, your experience of being called out and your experience of being a 2. And feel free to join me in kind of in person in the Grid Network for Light Leaders, which is a Facebook group that I host in order to get to know the people who watch my YouTube videos better and to create community. And then also I am available to look at your chart if you ever want my eyes on your chart and to give you my intuitive and channeled messages about who you are, why you're here, and what your next steps are. I would love to do that. And yeah, until next time, you can wait around and I will create the videos for the other half of your profile, whether it's a 4, 5, or a 6. Those are coming, but it might be a little bit. So definitely subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon here on my channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.